welcome back to Classic Gamer 74 and a big Happy New Year to all of you. I am your host, Anthony Gamer, and in today's episode, the very first of 2022, I'm going to present Advergames Part 2. In a previous episode, I had explained what Advergames are and had given a few examples, such as the one you see on the screen, the ill-fated polo game. Now, just to summarize real quickly, a Advergame is a game that was created by a game programming company such as Atari, Nintendo, whoever, to help promote a game, product, or service. Now, after I'd aired the first episode, some people had made some suggestions to me of other games that they felt were Advergames. A good example of this would be RC Pro-Am. Now, those are product placement games. Totally different, as a lot of times, especially in the 80s and 90s, you would see racing games were one that happened often, that you would see advertisements for different products, such as sodas, like Mountain Dew seemed to always work its way into some video game, and before laws changed, you would even find cigarettes and beer. Now, Advergames are totally different. They are made specifically to advertise a game, a product, or even a service. A good example of this from the previous episode were two versions of the game Tapper, one that advertised Budweiser and the other that advertised Suntory, the beer that was made only in Japan. So we're going to continue on learning more about some Advergames that were out there. So let's get started. And our first game for today is Kool-Aid Man from 1983 from Intellivision. Now, when this game first came out, the only way to get it was through mail order. You had to save up ungodly amounts of points from Kool-Aid products, and you mail it in, and you could either get a game for the Atari 2600 or the Intellivision. Now, of course, the Intellivision game was a lot cooler, as it was this really neat platform game. So, not too long after, or maybe a little while after, I'm not sure, they finally did release this game in retail, which must have really made the people that saved up all those points a little unhappy, and I wouldn't blame them. Anyway, in the game, you take on the role of these two children, and you're trying to mix all the things that are needed in order to make Kool-Aid. And as soon as you make Kool-Aid, the Kool-Aid Man himself comes out and he gets rid of those bad thirsties that are trying to attack the children. Pretty cool game, really original, and I'll tell you, it's got a challenge to it. You would think that a game like that would be easy peasy because it was geared towards children, but I'll tell you, the challenge is still there for gamers of all ages. In the early 90s, the cola company 7-Up got their own mascot, a little guy called the Spot, and he got a couple cool games as well as those really neat commercials you probably remember from them. And this is the first game, it's called Spot, the video game for the NES from 1990 from Virgin Interactive. This game is kind of like the game, board game, of Chinese checkers. So if you love that game, you're going to love this one. But he would also get a second game. And that game was Cool Spot. It was released in 1993 by Virgin Games for the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive and the Super Nintendo. Now, a year later, it was also ported out to the Sega Master System, Game Gear, Game Boy, Amiga, and MS-DOS. Now, in this platformer game, you take on the role of Cool Spot. Again, he is the mascot for 7-Up Cola, and he is trying to rescue other cool spots. Now, a little bit of trivia. When this game was released in Europe, the 7-Up bottle was removed from the intro and replaced by a generic soda bottle of a similar color. Now, that is because the decision was made to avoid associating the 7-Up Spot with the 7-Up brand in a region where Fido Dido has been considered the brand's mascot since the 1980s. In 1988, Ford Motor Company would release their own game, and that was called Ford Simulator for the MS-DOS. In this game, you would pick a particular model of Ford, and you would take it for a test drive. Then you could finance it and kind of pretend to buy it. It's a cool game for people that were interested in purchasing cars from that time or wanted to just try out some of their dream cars that they probably might not be able to afford. Ford would go on to have 2 more sequels to this game as time went on, all for MS-DOS. It reminds me a lot of that 280 ZZZ AP game that was released in the arcade for Nissan in 1976. The only difference is steering and driving this car is a whole lot more difficult. Ordinarily, I love driving simulator games, but this one is really, really bad. If you'd like to try out a really good driving simulator game from that time period, try out the test drive games, as that is a much more fun experience than this one. In the late 80s, Domino's Pizza came up with their own mascot, this annoying gremlin-like creature called the Noid. Now, as many of you probably know, Domino's Pizza has been always famous for their delivery. Well, they had a guarantee that you could get your pizza in 30 minutes or less back then. Now, the Noid represented a mean little creature that was trying to stop your pizza from getting delivered in a timely manner. And in this game called Avoid the Noid, you play a pizza delivery guy and you are trying to get your pizza to its delivery on time and avoid the Noid, who is trying to stop you. A year later, the Noid would be back with Yo-Noid. This was created by Capcom and released for the NES in November of 1990. Now, in this game, this platform game, the Noid is actually the protagonist, as these wild creatures are being led by a man named Mr. Green, and they're running amok around New York City. And as they cause havoc, the mayor of New York decides to call upon the Noid to stop his evil duplicate, save everyone, and give him a massive pizza reward. The game itself is okay, I guess. It's your typical NES platformer. The Noid himself became quite popular, and people everywhere were wearing shirts that said Avoid the Noid, and it was just a pretty cool concept. The Noid was retired in 1995, but came back in the last decade and seems to be making more and more appearances here lately. And our final game for today is Captain Novolin. This was from 1992 for the Super NES, and it was programmed by Spencer Shellman, Steve Aguirre, Cosmo Condor, and was released by Sculpted Software. Now, the story behind this game is pretty interesting, and I'll give you that summary right now, direct from Wikipedia. Funding for the game came from Novo Nordisk, makers of the Novolin brand of insulin, and the National Institutes of Health to promote the game. Now, in this game, you take on the superhero called Captain Novolin, who has type 1 diabetes. The game sees the player control Captain Novolin on a quest to save the mayor of Pineville from the supervillain Blubberman. Before the game starts, a doctor and a dietitian give advice on how to manage one's diet and insulin. Throughout the game, Captain Novolin has to avoid alien invaders who have the appearance of junk food items such as Serial Killer and Larry Licorice. Meanwhile, Captain Novolin must eat healthy meals to keep his blood glucose within a safe zone. Captain Novolin can die if his blood glucose level goes too high or too low. Players can earn points by keeping Novolin's glucose level in a safe zone and defeating the enemy aliens, while receiving bonus points by correctly answering questions that relate to diabetes. In addition, the game has a feature whereby a diabetic player can specify the frequency of their real-life insulin injections. To help promote the game, the company gave out 10,000 free copies of this game to children in hospitals. And of course, the children loved the game, parents liked it, and other healthcare professionals did. The game hasn't held up too well, but it's just one of those games that really doesn't. Although personally, I believe that it's a great game for children who suffer from diabetes to see that a superhero has the same illness that they do and is still able to do great things. In our next episode, we're going to have games that were based on TV shows. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of Classic Gamer 74. I really hope you all enjoyed it as much as I loved bringing it to you. If you did enjoy it, let us know by smashing that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to click that little bell icon down there so you'll be notified when I upload new episodes. Don't forget to connect with me on all my social media platforms, as well as my Jeopardy Labs and my new blog. The links are in the description below. Well, until next time, I am Anthony Gamer. All of you have yourselves a great week. Until next time, be strong, be safe, be happy, be healthy, and above all, take care of each other, be kind to each other, and stop hate of all kinds. Happy New Year, everyone.